Hi, I'm Linda, and this is No Frills ASMR. I thought today it might be fun to talk about the time capsule, the oldest time capsule in the United States. And I heard this story a while back, and it just kind of popped into my head today. And I thought, let's talk about that. That'll be fun. It is a time capsule that was it was placed by Sam Adams and Paul Revere and William Scoley. I don't know. I'm not familiar with him, but he was also a Revolutionary War, maybe general, I don't know. And people in Boston would know him, but I'm not familiar. But they placed this time capsule in 1795. Real quick, I'm not a historian or anything. I'm just telling you a story. So if you're really interested in having accurate facts, you might go, Google it. But I just want to tell you the story so you have a jumping off place for it. I love the idea of time capsules. I remember in 1976, the bicentennial, we placed one. I feel like it was in Clawson, Michigan, but I could be wrong. And I've often wondered, I guess they probably plan to dig it up in 100 years. I don't know. It's almost not long enough. You almost have to wait longer, I think. But what's kind of, let's start at the beginning. So in 1795, these Sam Adams and Paul Revere and William Scoley, I'm saying his name wrong, were already aware that they had lived through the Revolutionary War, and the beginning of the United States of America. And this was all happening. Let me just grab this real quick. In Massachusetts, in Boston, which is the capital. Whoops. And it's a port, it's on the water. And they were well aware that they had lived through the beginning of a nation. And so they wanted to kind of document that, I guess, with their time capsule. So it's kind of interesting. So they placed it in Boston. And I had originally read that they had placed it in the head of a brass lion that was on top of the old state building in Boston. But later I read that's a different time capsule. That one came later. But I still had this prop here, so I thought I showed you. It's my bookend. But they placed it, from what I understand, at the state building in Boston. And there is a big gold dome that then kind of has like a finial or whatever on top. So this is like bright gold. And they placed it like under here somewhere. I'm not even sure that it's clear where, because they put it in the ground in 1795. And when they did, like I said, they kind of knew it was a big deal. So they had it in like a cowhide box. I guess you could call it a box. And they had a big parade that went all the way from downtown Boston to the state building. And Sam Adams, at that time, he was the Massachusetts governor. And so they had this ceremony and a parade, and they took it and they placed it somewhere within the building. And in 1855, I believe, so not even 100 years after that, they were doing repairs on the building, and they found the cowhide time capsule. And I think the cowhide had started to disintegrate, and the items inside were dirty. So at that time, they cleaned the things with acid, and they put it into a new time capsule that was made out of copper, like a copper box, and added some other things from 1855. And they put it in a cornerstone, which was like a big granite cornerstone. I don't know if it literally means, like, I think it was still under the gold dome. And they kind of threw coins in there with the gold box, and they put it all in here. And in 2014, there was a leak in the building, and they were fixing it. And I think a worker, I mean, I don't know if they didn't know where it was. I'm kind of unclear on that part. But a worker saw it and reported it, and they called the Boston Museum of Fine Art. And they had experts come, and there was a woman who was in charge of chipping away it was like a big granite stone, cornerstone that it was in. And while she's chipping it, coins started to fall out because they had literally like thrown coins in around it. So coins from 1855 fell out. And then they very carefully pulled it out, and they said, and I watched a video, it was really, picture this, but a super like patinaed and rusty copper, but about this size, and it was just packed full of treasure. And so they were kind of pulling it out very carefully, pulling things out. And there was a Boston daily newspaper. And I tried to find out, was this Boston daily newspaper from 1795 or from the 1855? I'm assuming it was the original 1795. Now, this is not the one that was in the... I have made this, and I put a little coffee on it to make it crinkly and yellowed. And I am here to tell you, it smells wonderful. It smells real nice. So anyway, there was a couple of different Boston newspapers, but I think they were so, they were like thick. It looked like, from the photos I could see, kind of thick, like they had been folded. And then over time they had kind of just melded together, and they couldn't take them apart. So they just seemed to leave them sitting like that. And there were like these very ancient old coins from both the 1790s and from the 1850s, is my understanding. There were a decent amount of coins. And there was a metal depiction of George Washington. And it looked just like this, I'm sure. Not really. I never did really see that in a picture when I looked at images, but that's what I imagine it looks like. And interestingly, there was a coin in there that is called a pine tree shilling, and it said 1652 XII, which is Roman numerals for 10, 11, 12. I have a video on Roman numerals. If you've watched, you probably knew what that was. But go check it out. So anyway, this pine tree shilling was from 1650s. They were all marked 1650, even if they were made all the way up into like the 1670s. But Sam Adams, Paul Revere, and William Scully would know that this was an important piece to have in there, because the pine tree shilling was the first money coin that the colonists made, because Britain wasn't didn't have enough coinage to go around their own country, and they weren't sending enough coins to the colonists. So they started creating their own currency, which became an issue later on. So maybe we'll talk about that sometime. But on the back, there was a tree that looked like a pine tree, and they had a guy who they hired, I think his name was Hull, maybe H-U-L, to just make pine tree shillings currency. So that was an important piece of currency that they had put in there, and that was probably put in 1795. It was sort of a defiance of the British. And then I don't have anything to pretend is this, but they had a big piece of a metal plate, probably as big as this. And on that, it said, the names Sam Adams, Paul Revere, William Scully in 1795 placed this time capsule or whatever. I don't know if they called it that. And they're pretty sure that Paul Revere made that piece because he was a metal worker blacksmith. So it's kind of interesting. So that was in 2014. They took it all out, and I believe they put it on display for a few months or maybe a year, I don't know, at the Boston Fine Art Museum. And I did watch a video that showed them like unpacking it. It was kind of interesting. Tiny, just a smaller box than this, I think. But then they put everything back. They put all the treasures back in there from both periods. And I believe they added from 2015 a mint proof set of coins from 2015. So they added that to the collection. Now this set I have a lot of mint coins that I have thought about doing a video with, but I feel like I should learn more about coins, and it's just a lot. But these ones happen to be from 1980. I didn't have any as new as 2015. These ones have the Susan B. Anthony dollar in them. It may have been the last year they made it, 1980. I don't remember. Anyway, so they put that in, and then they took it and they reburied it back at the Boston State House. So it is buried again for some other generation to find. So that's fun. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I have my books here. So if you want, we could just kind of look up some of the things we talked about. I actually marked some pages, so I think I have Paul Revere marked. Now, surprisingly, this book doesn't have anybody but Paul Revere. It doesn't even have Sam Adams. But I'll be honest, before the beer came out, I had never heard of Sam Adams. So here it says, Paul Revere, a hero of the Revolutionary War. On the night before the Battle of Lexington and Concord in 1775, Revere, a silversmith by trade, rode across the Massachusetts countryside, warning the other colonists that British troops were moving toward them to seize military supplies and arrest revolutionaries. Revere got his information by the British through a signal lights placed in a church tower by a friend. And then it says, see, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. Those whom he warned were ready to fight the British the next day. So that, and then it says, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow told the story of the midnight ride, though not with the complete though not with complete accuracy, in his poem Paul Revere's Ride. Do you think the one if by land to by sea is right here, or no? If it's right here, maybe we'll look at it. Nope, I don't think so. Oh, geez. It must be in a different part. Okay, what else did I mark? Hold on, let's see. Let's see what else I marked. I see. Okay, all right. Okay, hold on. I marked Boston, capital of Massachusetts and largest city in the state, site of the Boston Massacre and the Boston Tea Party. Boston is often called the hub for Hub of the Universe, or Bean Town, after Boston baked beans. Yeah, Bean Town. It's because they had a lot of molasses coming from India, and so they'd like soak the beans in the molasses, and that's where baked beans come. Boston Massacre, that's why I had this one, and the Tea Party. Boston Massacre, a clash between British troops and townspeople in Boston in 1770, before the Revolutionary War. The British fired into a crowd that was threatening them, killing 5, including Crispus Attucks. The soldiers had been sent to help the government maintain order and were resented even before the incident. The killings increased the colonists' inclination towards revolution. Let's just read real quick because Crispus Attucks, black sailor killed in the Boston Massacre. It is said that he was among the first Americans to die in the struggle for liberty. Boston Tea Party, an act of defiance toward the British government by American colonists. It took place in 1773, before the Revolutionary War. The government in London had given a British company the right to sell tea directly to the colonies, thereby undercutting American merchants. A group of colonists found a ship in the harbor of Boston that was loaded with the company's tea. They dressed as Native Americans, boarded the ship, and threw hundreds of chests of tea overboard. The British government then tried to punish the colonists by closing the port of Boston, but this move only intensified American resistance to the rule of the king. You know, I've never really... Why did they dress as Native Americans? Did they not want the British to know it was them? Like that part, I don't really understand. I'll have to look that up. All right, and then this one has a little Sam Adams. Samuel Adams, American Revolutionary leader. As a member and clerk of the Massachusetts legislature, he was the chief spokesman for the Revolution. He helped form several radical organizations, led the Stamp Act protest of 1765, helped to plan the Boston Tea Party of 1773, and was a signatory of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. He was a delegate to the Continental Congress until 1781. Yeah. The Stamp Act. Stamp Act protest. They were protesting because that was another, the British were trying to tax. And I think that's part of why I like that pine tree shilling. I think they were dealing with money without the British government like having control of it. And that was a problem for the British government, I think. So anyway, that's kind of the story. I thought that was just a fun story. So it is the oldest time capsule in the United States as far as I read. So that's good if you play trivia. A little bit of trivia knowledge. And there was a pine tree shilling in it, which was the first currency of the United States, I believe. And then this George Washington, like medallion or whatever they called it. I'm sure it was bigger than this. Do you know what this is, by the way? Because I am not a woman, a girl who grew up sewing. It wasn't for me. I got an F in sewing in home economics. I got an A in, it was two-part, half sewing, half cooking. I got an A in cooking and I don't know if they had an F, maybe a D in sewing. But later in life, I was making sock monkeys for my kids with a girlfriend, and she taught me this. You take this, I don't know if you can see it. How can I see that? Oops, sorry. Triangle. If you're just listening, this is like a metal. I used it because there's a picture of a person on it, but it's like a metal piece, and then there's a very thin wire diamond shape. Okay, and you take thread and you put it into the diamond and through. What is my diamond broken? No, hold on. You put it through the diamond, so now it's the thread is going through the diamond, right? And then you take a needle, a sewing needle, and for a lot of people like me, this is a nearly impossible task to get thread through that needle. So you take this, you guys, I haven't done this in a minute, hold on, let me remember. And you push this through. Okay, hold on, I know, I did it wrong. First you push this through, right? Alright, so now this is through the needle, right? Your wire loop is through the needle eye. And then you put your thread through there, and then you pull this out, and look, now you've got your needle threaded. What? I was 50 years old when I learned about, no, 40 years old when I learned about that. Anyway, okay, so that's what that was. Well, guys, thank you for watching. I hope that wasn't too all over the place. Sometimes they are. Hold on, I'm going to get my map. All right, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye. separate legislative, executive, and judicial branches. It established Congress as a lawmaking